Hola mis morracos padawans, bienvenidos a este especial muy importante para el canal.
Y antes de comenzar les tengo una pregunta. ¿Qué tienen en común los clones regulares, los miembros de The Bad Batch y hasta Perry el ornitorrinco? Exacto, Perry, este señor de aquí, Don DEE Bradley Baker, uno de los actores de doblaje más versátiles de Estados Unidos, con una trayectoria gigante, que hizo la bobadita de prestar su voz para el Capitán Rex, el Comandante Cody y todos los demás soldados clones de la República en Clone Wars. De igual forma, la voz de Dee estará detrás de Hunter, Echo, Wrecker, Tech y Crosshair, los protagonistas de la nueva serie animada de la saga de Star Wars The Bad Batch, que justamente se estrenó a través de Disney+. Pues bueno, tuve la oportunidad de hablar con él un rato sobre este nuevo proyecto y como fan de Star Wars estoy muy feliz de compartirlo con ustedes justamente hoy, 4 de mayo, día de Star Wars. Hi Dee, nice to meet you.
Hey, good to meet you. Oh, I like your you got Stormtrooper back there, Baby Yoda.
Of course.
All right.
Yeah, they're my backup. I couldn't do this interview alone, man. I need a backup. Okay, first of all, thank you so much for your time, Dee. And I want to start asking you for a brief overview of what the Bad Batch is and how this new Star Wars arc evolved since Clone Wars.
The Bad Batch is it's a supercharged version of what I've done in the Clone Wars universe. There are not only clones, but but there's these guys who are broader variations of clones, and so it's a deepening and a more sophisticated version of what the Clone Wars experience was for me in terms of what we had to do in the studio and how we create it.
Right, yeah, they're definitely different from what we get used to see about the clones. They are this messed up group with genetical defects, and that's why they got separated from the main group. We know how the regular clones are, so how do you think the dynamic of the Bad Batch works with the world and with themselves?
So I would say this is that the tensions and the differences that exist within the group, this really fine-tuned group, those are brought out in very interesting, if even potentially explosive ways, due to the pressures of this transformation from Republic to Empire, to a universe that is much more authority-based and rule-based. And the Bad Batch, they kind of play by their own rules. Although within the group, there is there's an interesting differences of dynamic in terms of authority and control and worldview, shall we say? And so this very much plays out in a big way as the season plays out of season 1.
Sergeant, good to see you again. You too, sir.
Alright, Dee, I'm a 2D animation student, and of course this is one of my favorite shows because I love Star Wars and because I love animation. But there's people that it seems they don't quite connect with the story because of the technique that the show was made. They seem to get stuck with the old classic movies, and of course it depends on each people's generation. But do you think that Clone Wars and now the Bad Batch can be easily enjoyed by all audiences?
Star Wars, as anyone who's been paying attention, is not a static mythology. It's not a static creative machine. It's constantly coming up with newer variations and deeper artistry and sophistication on all levels. When Star Wars first hit Episode 4 back in 1977, that was a whole lot of I've never seen any of this. You're constantly being surprised. And then you go to Empire Strikes Back, which is like it's one of the biggest surprises in all of cinema, in the history of cinema, with one line that rewrites 2 movies instantly. I mean, I remember what that was like to experience that. So it's this sense of novelty and of surprise and still switching up this really fun, interesting story. All of these things are wonderfully in play with the Bad Batch as fans of all ages and hopefully newcomers even are about to see.
We need to get out of here.
Okay, now I want to ask you about the recording process for the Bad Batch. You know, I've seen these clips with the making of the Clone Wars voices, this kind of behind the scenes, and you can see all the actors sharing the same room. You had to do a lot of scenes with James Arnold Taylor, who is the voice of Obi-Wan, with Matt Lanter, the voice of Anakin, Ashley Eckstein, the voice of Ahsoka, and Dave Filoni said that the chemistry between the actors was key to develop this dynamic and get like the right tone from each character. The thing with the Bad Batch is that you give your voice for almost all the characters, actually all the main characters. So how does it work? How do you manage to do this on your own, keeping in mind that there's a lot of interactions or crossovers between your characters?
It's
doesn't get lonely sometimes?
It's an oddly solitary experience, and yet I'm making it as a collaboration, right? Brad Rao and Jennifer Corbett, they're in there with me, along with others, as we make this story together. So in one sense, yes, as far as the actor goes, often, but not always, it's just me working through the scene with myself. It's an odd kind of acting, you know, especially these days with the virus where it's all done remotely now. Because before, you know, like in the Clone Wars, that we would record the shows for the most part as an ensemble, and we'd all be there and we'd all go through the show together. Thankfully, with animation in the past year, that the industry and all the different shows found a way to very quickly write themselves and to come together and to continue to collaborate successfully on all animated shows. I can't think of one that I worked on that just dropped off and fell off the map because, well, we can't do this anymore, because clearly they very quickly found out that they could, happily. But it's very different. It's still collaborative. We're still seeing each other like you and I are now. But we are not face to face. So there's a little bit of a loss with that, but at least we can see each other. And this is a deeply collaborative art form and process. That's still live and still up and running, thankfully.
All right. Speaking of the whole process, many people wonder, how does it work? And I know that all the animated shows works different, but in the Bad Batch, how's the workflow between the producers, the animation artists from the show, and the voice actors? You know, you have to record anything so the animators have references, or they animate everything first and you get that for reference to make the right voice for each character.
What I see and what I know starts with them sending me a script, which I look over, and then we have I'm in my little room, my little chamber, my lair, and we record it. Sometimes just me, sometimes with Michelle, who plays Omega, or with other members of the cast. Then months later, they may come back to me with scenes that they have animated or that need to be reanimated, with lines of dialogue that need to be changed, that need to be massaged a little bit or completely changed or redone in terms of the performance. Sometimes it needs to be louder or it needs to be more urgent. And you don't know that until you've produced it, and then you listen to it and say, oh, we need to fix that. So then I'm brought in once again to do pickups, or what we call ADR, which is I'm recording to picture what I'm seeing, and then they reanimate using that.
Whoa, that's awesome. I really wanted to know that. And do you get involved somehow in the post-production process, or do you get to know how they put together everything?
I've seen Dave Filoni. I've walked through the chambers to see how they're putting this massive project together, and it's fascinating. It's just it's an incredible it's an incredible collaboration with people just laboring hours and days on end, and I see very little of that, and I wish that the world could see that. It's really fascinating to see how this all comes together and to make the magical, fun, awesome show that you see.
Whoa, that's great, man. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now I wanted to ask you something about the story. At the end of Clone Wars, we get to see Echo joining the Bad Batch. He was part of the Rex that are like this big community, and suddenly he decides to go with this dysfunctional and unorthodox squad. How do you feel about this change? Perhaps it has any impact on the way you develop the voice for the character? Maybe he has a different attitude from the one that we got to know in Clone Wars?
Well, that's a really interesting question. That's a very you've been paying attention. I like that. Yeah, I mean, Echo's story is kind of a heartbreaking one, and it's a very interesting one if you followed it all the way through the Clone Wars. And so it starts out it ends at the end of the Clone Wars, where he's just barely conscious and ripped away from this machine that he's connected into, and now has to become his own person. And I think it's a heartbreaking story, but one with some daylight there, because I think he realizes that he fits in better with the Bad Batch, the weird guys, who are happy they're good to have him along. He's a bit at odds with them, I would say, just because, as you say, he's a reg. He's used to being a clone, which is it's more of a top-down work model than the Bad Batch. And so once we launch into the Bad Batch, I would say he's a little at odds with these odd characters who are very idiosyncratic, who are very good at what they do and who work together beautifully, but it's not the kind of dynamic that he is used to.
Hunter.
Let's go.
Echo. Tick.
Prepping to jump.
Wrecker.
Let's blow something up.
And Crosshair.
Your move.
Okay, now that you talk about the personality of the characters and the relationship that they have each other, the regular clones, yeah, they'll have different tone on their voices, but somehow they're all the same in the matter of how they act, you know? They follow instructions from superiors, in this case the Jedi, and you know, that works because they were built to do so. The Bad Batch, as you said, work under their own rules, so how did you study the personality and the attitude, or, I don't know, the way of seeing the world to build the right tone for the voices? Especially after this event, I think is the main breakpoint in all Star Wars, which is the Order 66.
What's most helpful for me is to get a lock on an image or an adjective that describes each one, and then to apply that as I'm moving through the script. And then if I need to go back and maybe like bend the character a little bit more this way or that, I can refer to that. You know, with Hunter's always gonna be, there's like a covered sound to him. He's got this smoky, covered sound, right? And that sets him apart from Echo, who's got more of a ring to his voice, and he's often kind of dissatisfied and maybe not so happy with what the other characters are doing. There's a grumpiness to him. Crosshair he's like a snake that's coiled and ready, and is just watching from a distance, you know, not necessarily saying anything, although much is being thought. And Tech is very clipped, and it's very easy breezy. All things are very simple and easy for Tech. Even if we're about to die and the ship is about to blow apart, this is how it is. And so with those little adjectives to help steer it and to get it and to lock into it, it starts out a little bit tricky, but then I get familiar with it and I can do it quite easily because it's like I can see them. It's like I can see the character. I don't know how to describe it, but it's easy to lock into them because I can see them. I can feel the tone, and it's very specific. And so I can just jump from one to the other as we go through the script.
Strap in, kid.